The correct answer is A. Sleep deprivation has consequences beyond its impact on adenosine levels. The phrase, by no means the be-all and end-all, suggests that while adenosine levels and their role in sleep deprivation are important, they are not the sole factor or the complete explanation for the effects of sleep deprivation on the brain or the body. This expression implies that there are other factors and mechanisms involved in the consequences of sleep deprivation. Let's break down the other options and explain why they are incorrect. B. Adenosine levels are a significant factor in situations other than sleep deprivation. This statement is not supported by the passage. The emphasis is on adenosine levels in response to sleep deprivation, and the passage does not discuss the role of adenosine in situations other than sleep deprivation. C. The role of adenosine as a response to sleep deprivation is not yet fully understood. While the passage does mention that adenosine may underlie some cognitive deficits resulting from sleep loss, it doesn't suggest that the role of adenosine is not fully understood. Instead, it discusses the findings related to adenosine and its impact on sleep-deprived animals. D. The importance of the link between sleep deprivation and adenosine should not be underestimated. This option might seem plausible, but the phrase, by no means the be-all and end-all, suggests that while the link between sleep deprivation and adenosine is important, it is not the only factor. It doesn't undermine the importance of the link but emphasizes that there are other factors involved in the consequences of sleep deprivation. The correct answer is D. The extent of the contrast in the men's metabolic states between sleep debt and recovery. The passage indicates that during the sleep debt phase, the men's glucose metabolism resembled a pre-diabetic state. The significant aspect of Van Cotter's experiment was not just that sleep deprivation had an influence on glucose levels, but rather the remarkable difference or contrast in the men's metabolic states between the sleep debt phase and the sleep recovery phase. The surprise was the magnitude of the effect being much greater than expected. Let's examine why the other options are incorrect. A. The rate at which the sleep-deprived men entered a pre-diabetic state. The passage doesn't provide information about the rate at which the sleep-deprived men entered a pre-diabetic state. It focuses on the magnitude of the effect during the sleep debt phase compared to the recovery phase. B. The fact that sleep deprivation had an influence on the men's glucose levels. While sleep deprivation having an influence on glucose levels is mentioned, the emphasis in the passage is on the significant contrast or difference in metabolic states between the sleep debt and recovery phases. C. The differences between individual men with regard to their glucose tolerance. The passage does not discuss individual differences in glucose tolerance among the men. It focuses on the overall impact of sleep debt and the contrast in metabolic states during the recovery phase. In summary, the key finding in Van Cotter's experiment was the substantial difference in the men's metabolic states between the sleep debt and recovery phases, making option D the correct answer. The correct answer is D, enforced lack of sleep. In the fifth paragraph, the word "it" refers to the enforced lack of sleep. The passage states, echoing Van Cotter's results, Bashir has found evidence that enforced lack of sleep sends the brain into a catabolic or energy-consuming state. The subsequent sentences explain how this catabolic state is induced by the breakdown of adenosine triphosphate, ATP, during enforced lack of sleep, leading to the activation of AMP kinase and subsequent effects on fatty acid synthesis and glucose utilization. Now let's examine why the other options are incorrect. A, an enzyme. The passage mentions the enzyme AMP kinase, but it, in this context, does not refer to the enzyme itself. Instead, it refers to the enforced lack of sleep. B, new evidence. The word "it" does not refer to new evidence in the context of the paragraph. The passage is describing the mechanism underlying the catabolic state induced by enforced lack of sleep. C, a catabolic state. While the passage discusses the catabolic state induced by lack of sleep, it specifically refers to the enforced lack of sleep in this context. The sentence is explaining how the catabolic state is a result of the degradation of ATP during enforced sleep deprivation.